By your endurance you will gain your lives. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. Good to see you. I think that for the most part, when we hear this gospel, I think most of us think end times, right? Oh, he's talking about the end of the world. After all, he does say here that when the end comes, and so, we tend to think that. But I think that there's a lot in this passage that indicates that this is not indeed about the end of the world. And we'll talk later about why that's the case. But if it's not about the end of the world, what then is the point of this passage? And for that, I would take you to the very last verse that says this: by your endurance, you will gain your lives. I think that's the real point that he has to make. And when I read this in the King James Version, I thought that it came across so much better and was far more revealing of the intent. Let me read it for you in the King James. It says, in your patience possess ye your souls. Isn't that much better? I like that. That's so much more poetic. And I think it gets to the heart of what Jesus Christ is really talking about. In patience possess your souls. So what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at that. Let's begin with this first verse here. So Jesus and his disciples, they've come to Jerusalem, all right? So this is a big historic city, and like most big historic cities, they've got big historic buildings, and essentially they're being sightseers. They're walking around, and the disciples are going, oh, look at this. Look at the temple and all the beautiful stonework and how magnificent it is, and its architecture, and it's glorious. Of course, it was, at the time, one of the wonders of the world. You wouldn't have just seen anything like this on a regular basis. Well, Jesus is unimpressed. And instead of marveling at the architecture of the temple, he instead says this rather shocking thing. He says, as for these things which you see, the days will come where there shall not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. And of course, to the disciples, this is a rather shocking thing. I mean, we're talking about the temple here, the very center of all Jewish religion, which itself represented to the Jews the entire cosmos. So it makes sense to them that they would be connecting this event to the end of the world. I mean, my goodness, how could the temple possibly be destroyed? And then, of course, Jesus goes on, he talks about earthquakes and famines and pestilences and signs in the sky and so on and so forth. It sounds very apocalyptic, doesn't it? But the fact of the matter is that we live today in 2019, almost 2020, believe it or not. It's almost the new year. Can you believe that? Just like a month and a week left. It's crazy. Anyways, excuse me. That's aside from the point. But the fact is that today in 2020, the temple is not standing. What Jesus predicted to happen didn't happen at the end of the world. Instead, if you read Josephus, you find that the destruction of the temple took place in 70 AD with the sack of Jerusalem by the Romans. Jesus here was not predicting the end of the world. Rather, he was predicting the sack of Jerusalem and the fall of the temple. Not only that, but I would suggest to you that the Christians in his own age understood his message very well. Because if you look at the historical record, we find that Christians within Jerusalem saw it coming. And when Rome was about to sack Jerusalem, the Christians headed out. They headed to the hills, as Jesus said, and they saved their lives. And the Romans came in, and blood was shed, and it was a terrible massacre, and the Jews were dispersed in the temple itself. Not a single stone has been left standing upon another. And so all of this that we see predicted about the temple and about Jerusalem has been fulfilled. And so if this is not about the end of the world, then we're left to ask, what is the point of this passage? I think Jesus tells us rather clearly further on. He says this, but before all this, they will lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and prisons. and you will be brought before kings and governors for my name's sake. This will be a time for you to bear testimony. This passage, what it's truly about, it's not about the end of the world, it's not about predicting the future, it's not even really about the fall of the temple. But what it's really about is preparing his disciples for the very epitome of what discipleship means and what it ought to be. And that, my friends, is martyrdom. That's really what this passage is about. He says, even before the fall of Jerusalem takes place, which is very near the future, it was only 40 years away from this time. Even before then, you will be drugged before all the rulers of Jerusalem and persecuted because of what you believe. And your very lives will be required of you before 70 AD. And for the vast majority of them, it was the truth. My friends, martyrdom exemplifies everything that it truly means to be a Christian. Because Jesus Christ came and he gave his entire life for us so that we might give our entire lives for him. The church throughout all the ages has always celebrated martyrdom as the very exemplar of what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. But lest you begin to think that that's for all of those extreme Christians out there who are in difficult situations who actually give it all, I would say don't be too quick. Martyrdom simply exemplifies everything that it means to be a Christian, but Jesus Christ said to us that daily we were to pick up our cross and follow him. St. Paul says that daily we are to crucify the flesh. My friends, what is it that a martyr does other than rise victorious over the world, the flesh, and the devil in the most exemplary way possible? But we ourselves are called to give our entire lives, for the sake of Jesus Christ as well. The call of the gospel in our lives is not one of halfway. As a matter of fact, every single morning you wake up and you get out of bed, and the flesh is staring you in your face. What is going to be your answer? Every single morning you go to make your coffee, and the world is requesting your allegiance. What will be your answer? Every day you go to work, and the devil is knocking on your door. How will you respond? That, my friends, is the life of martyrdom, to dedicate our entire lives and to turn our back on the world, the flesh, and the devil, no matter what it has to offer us, and to live our lives wholly and totally and completely for the sake of Jesus Christ. Let me take you back real quickly to that King James version of that final verse. In patience, possess ye your souls. I would suggest to you that this is precisely what it means to possess your souls. Because every time you give in to the world or the flesh and the devil, you demonstrate that you're not in complete control of yourself. That you do not belong to you, rather you're possessed of the devil and of the world and of the flesh. And you're divided among these three instead of being fully and completely yours and yourself. Well, Jesus Christ came into this world and beat the devil to a pulp in order to take you back from him. And how dare we give ourselves back once Jesus has won that victory for us? To possess yourselves and to possess yourselves fully is to say daily no to the world, the flesh, and the devil, and to maintain full control of who you are and what you do in every situation. Now, if that is what this passage is about, the next question that we have to ask is, how do we do it? How did we get there? We know that it's not about the end of the world, but we do know that this passage is about living out martyrdom in our daily lives. But I think this is rather far from where each of us really is in our own daily lives, correct? Jesus gives the answer as to how we can see this manifested within our own lives, and he gives it in this last verse. By your endurance, you will gain your lives. Or, in patience, you shall possess your souls. This patient endurance, my friends, I believe is the key to possessing our souls, which none of us do perfectly for the current moment. Every day we wake up, right? We get out of bed, and the flesh looks us in the face, and we give in. The world comes calling, and we give in. The devil knocks on the door, and we give in. We do it again and again and again and again. And you may want to become discouraged in this, my friends, but I would suggest that you should not. As I said before, the ancient church viewed the early martyrs as athletes, as those who were willing to go through the suffering to obtain the crown. When you think of an athlete, it's someone that has gone through all sorts of enduring things that they had to get through in order to make themselves the perfect athlete, to bring themselves under control and under subjection. They didn't get there in a day. They got there by trying to run a mile and then failing, and then failing, and then failing, and then finally running the mile, and then trying to get to 2 miles, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, so on and so forth, until they finally obtain their goal. Failure is just part of the game. I was playing baseball with my son not long ago, and teaching him how to swing a bat and all this and that, and he got discouraged. He threw the bat down. He said, "I'm a failure. I failed." And I said to him, "Alex, it's only failure if it's the last time you try." He sat there and he thought about that for a few seconds. And then he picked up the bat, swung it a couple more times, and we got it. And I think that's a great lesson for each of us, that it is endurance and patience that will win the day, that will win the race, that will obtain for us the goal, and that will allow us and enable us to gain full possession of ourselves. St. Gregory the Great said this about this passage. He said, "By patience, then, we possess our souls, because when we are said to govern ourselves, we begin to possess that very thing which we truly are. But for this reason, the possession of the soul is laid in the virtue of patience, because patience is the root and guardian of all virtues." If we are to perform any of the virtues, it requires us to perform it through to the end. To have that patient endurance, that long suffering that enables us to complete the journey and to come about to its fullness. As a matter of fact, I would suggest to you that this is truly what it means to be involved in the life of the church. The church's theology, the church's liturgical theology, is one of activity, of action, of doing. We're given the daily prayers of the church. We're called to come all the way into the church every single Sunday. We're called to maintain the feasts and the fasts of the church. The word liturgy is 2 Greek words put together, lay and orgia. And together it's liturgia. And these 2 words are together mean the work of the people. The prayers of the church are work, because without work, you don't get anything done. You don't obtain your goal. And our spirituality here is not one of entertainment, but it's one of work, it's one of action, it's one through which we must persevere. My friends, how can we expect to say no to the world, the flesh, and the devil if we can't even make it into church and sit through in a pew for an hour on a Sunday morning? How do we expect to say no to the devil if we can't say our morning and evening prayers? How can we expect to say no to the devil if we can't even say no to a potato chip when we're fasting? The liturgy of the church is the work of the church, which enables us to gain strength and endurance and long-suffering, and enables us to obtain those virtues that are necessary to possess ourselves, to become fully in control, to become fully who we can be in Jesus Christ, and to become martyrs for the sake of the Lord. If not in flesh, then in our spiritual lives, by giving ourselves fully to Him and taking ourselves back from the world and the flesh and the devil. So in review, my friends, this passage is not at all about the end of the world. This passage is about truly possessing ourselves and giving ourselves wholly and completely to Jesus Christ. And to do that through long and patient endurance and through exercising the work of the people, the prayers of the church. Because in your patience, you shall possess your souls. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.